Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. I've tried to do some videos here lately, just to some questions that I get pretty commonly. And one question that I get all the time is, what are the most important records to own? Like people say, give me 3 records or give me 10 records of the most important records to own. And I've thought about it and thought about it. And I even did a video a while back, like the top 20 records that every collector should have, And I felt kind of bad about doing that because my true belief is that you should have what you like. I mean, a lot of people railroaded me for like, how dare you tell me what I have to have in my collection? Which is not what I was trying to do. I was just trying to recommend some good albums. But anyways, a lot of people I know are getting into records for the first time right now. This past year, a lot of people have had more time on their hands and they've been getting into vinyl. And so a lot of people for Christmas got turntables. And so a lot of people are just new to this. And when you're walking into this type of thing, there's so much that you don't know and so much that you feel like other people know. And you're like, what should I know to fit in with this group? And so I've been thinking about the best albums to recommend. And honestly, I gave up. I just said, I don't know that there is. There's so many different types of music. I mean, there's people that are collectors that are so into punk. And there's people in the collect that are so into hip hop, and people that collect that are so into metal and all different types of music. I mean, like I'm really into psych and blues, and like I have a lot of different shoots, but a lot of people, they zone in on one thing. So then you feel like you got to be in that community. And so I just wanted to do this video and just share something that I wish somebody had told me when I was young and just starting out. I had 2 phases of my collecting. When I started collecting, I was 10 years old, and there was no, you should own this, you should own that. I wasn't on the internet. There was an internet. There probably was, but I didn't have it. And there was no one telling me you should have this, you should have that. I just bought what I could and what I liked. And then 10 years down the road, when the vinyl resurgence started coming back again, this was like 10 years ago, and it just kind of started. I wasn't the only one who had records, and I wasn't weird anymore. Well, I mean, I was weird, but for different reasons. And all of a sudden, there were these people that were putting out these lists like, this is the most, blend, you got to have this, you got to have that. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to buy this record, and this record's coming out, and it's hot, and everyone needs to, I need to, in order to be able to carry on a conversation with these record store people, I got to know this stuff. And so I started buying records I didn't really like. And so I wish someone had gone back to me at that stage and said, listen, just buy records that you like. And so my advice to you, if you're getting into this for the first time, is to search your mind for the albums that have impacted you in your life and seek those albums out and develop your own collection, your own taste that way. Don't let any pretentious vinyl snob tell you got to own this or you got to own that. You don't have to own anything. The most important thing is that you like what you do own. So, there's a lot of records over the years that I've bought and I'm not really listened to because I haven't enjoyed them. But the records that I really love are the ones that really, they're the ones that get the most frequent plays on my turntable, and they're the ones that make this whole thing fun and exciting. And then there's also records that were from my childhood or from different stages of my life that I'm hunting down and trying to find because they mean so much to me. So I put together just 10 for me personally that were essential for me to find myself. This is not your list. This is not anyone else's list. This was just for me. And what I would love to see out of this is maybe some of you guys either comment some records that were hard for you to find or essential for you to find, or maybe post your own 10 essential albums that were yours for you to find. And so I love hearing the stories. I love seeing stuff like that. So my first one, that when I first started collecting, I needed this record. I had to find it, is Led Zeppelin III. This is my favorite Zeppelin album. At different stages of my life, this has been my favorite album of all time. I've got about 3 favorite albums of all time. This is one of them. But when I was a kid, I had a cassette of this, and I had a little Walkman. And one year we were at the beach, and there was a hurricane coming through, and they had to evacuate everywhere. We were right on the beachfront. We were renting a place there, and they evacuated us. And I don't know why we ended up doing this. My mom loves the beach. I don't think she just didn't want to go home, but they put us in a local high school, to kind of evacuate away from the hurricane. The hurricane came and passed, but we had to sleep on the floor in the hallway of this high school overnight. And all I had to listen to was Led Zeppelin III on my Walkman. So every time I hear this record, every single time I think about that. And at the time it was brutal, but it was just such a, there's a lot of stories within that story of things that happened, but such a cool memory, and that always brings me back to this record. So I love this record. It's one of my favorites. And then also after that night, I remember thinking, I've got to get this on vinyl. I've got to find it because I didn't have a copy. And I ended up, not this copy, it's a different, this is actually a original UK Plum label, but I ended up trading a pair of pants for my first copy. I had a green pair of pants my friend wanted, and we traded. Second one is Wish You Were Here. This is the half-speed master version. But this is one as a kid. Everybody's favorite seemed to be Dark Side of the Moon, but I was the only one I knew that my favorite was Wish You Were Here. Every time I heard this, just Shine On You Crazy Diamond, that whole series just really struck me, and I was so moved by this album. And so this is another one. I had the CD for it, but I couldn't find the record, and finally I did, and it was one that I listened to over and over again and just absolutely just couldn't put down. And to this day, it's a very, very, very that's one of my top most listened to records ever, just because every time I put it on, I just like, oh man, it's so good. It's one, it brings me back. This is another one I always looked for as a kid, and it was a real hard for me to find. The Doors' L.A. Woman. What's funny is one of the songs on here that stuck out to me the most was Cars Hiss By My Window, which is a blues-based kind of song that they did. But I mean, all the songs on here I absolutely loved, and for some reason this one was almost impossible for me to find. It's a Japanese pressing of it, but when I did find it, it was just one that was so sweet to have and listen to over and over again. And again, another frequent listen for me. Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland. This is my favorite Hendrix. This is as good as it gets for me in Hendrix. I love Are You Experienced? I love Axis Bowl Is Love. But this one, just something about it, just when I was a kid, captivated me so much. I looked for it forever and finally found it at a Goodwill. And the cover was totally water damaged, and like the front picture here, the paper had peeled off, but was still kind of there. So I snuck into my library and laminated the whole thing. I laminated the whole front, which, I mean, the record was also not in great shape, but that was the copy I had for like 10 years and eventually upgraded to a better copy. But just the way, not Voodoo Child Slight Return, but Voodoo Child, the more bluesy number on there, not the popular Slight Return, which the Voodoo Child Slight Return, I mean, it's timeless. I love it. Anytime I pick up a guitar, that's what I'm playing. But that real cool, like 15-minute Voodoo Child was man, it was a frequent listen for me then, and it still is now. As I got a little bit older and my styles kind of changed and my taste evolved a little bit, I became aware of this record. And I listened to it online a good bit, and this was probably 2012-ish that I really became obsessed with this record, and I could not find it on vinyl, and that is Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle. And this one, I looked everywhere, searched high and low, could not find it. And one year, I was working a job, wasn't making a whole lot of money, but we hadn't been on vacation in a while. And me and my wife really needed some time off. This was, 6-7 years ago probably. And I had been looking for this record forever. And I scraped together all the money I could and paid for a week at the beach for us to go, And we went out one day and we went to there's a flea market at the beach. And I went and there's a booth of records. I started looking through the records and there's like ridiculous prices. These antique booths and stuff that have like, I remember seeing, Janis Joplin, Big Brother and Cold and Company, Cheap Thrills for $75. And like all these Jimi Hendrix records were like $100. And I was like, man, there's nothing I can afford here. And I looked up on the wall and I saw this. And I was like, I hate to even ask because I got like no money. And I asked the guy, I was like, how much for that one up there? He's like, oh, that's a weird one. I do like $4 on it. And I couldn't believe it. And because these are normally go for like $100 and up. And I was just so thrilled to find it. And And this is one this is also, this one and Led Zeppelin 3 are in the top 3 of my #1 favorite album, if that makes any sense. This is another one, when I heard it, I wanted to buy a reissue, but I just felt in my gut that I could find an original, and I looked for years and years for an original, and right as I almost broke down and bought a reissue, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, I'm selling some Psych records. And it's this 13th Floor Elevator, Psychedelic Sounds of the 13th Floor Elevator. This is an original mono copy. This is one of my prized records I love so much. Back when he sold it to me, this was several years ago, they weren't going for quite as much as they are now, so I got a really good deal on it. But this, when I first heard it, I remember the thought for the first time, there's music out there that I've never heard, because I was in a rut to where I had listened to so much classic rock, so much popular radio stuff, that I was like, man, is there nothing else out there? I mean, I've listened to Black Dog 1,000 times. I love Led Zeppelin, but come on, you know, and I was just sick of just all the popular albums that I feel like I'd heard it all. And someone recommended me this, and I listened to it, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is some rock and roll I've never heard before. This is insanely good. And this was the gateway for me for the whole underground psychedelic scene, man. There's like, it's a bottomless pit of stuff if you are getting into it. But this album really opened it up for me. It is weird, it's quirky, but it's got some solid early garage riffs. It's just, man, this is, in my opinion, so essential. If you think that you have heard it all, this is one record, but it had such an impact on me. I was like, I've got to find one. And I'm not like that with every record. I do like to find the original, but for this one, it was just like, when I found it, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have this record, and it meant the world to me. Another one, like a little bit later on, I started really getting into soul and funk and all that different type of stuff too. I mean, blues, I was always kind of into blues, but one soul record that really stuck to me that I really, really wanted to find was this Otis Blue. Otis Redding, Otis Blue is just, this is my favorite. It's got to be my favorite soul record, but I'd been looking for a copy for a long time. I remember hearing Otis Redding for the first time and just hearing the emotion in his voice, and just such a rich, genuine, authentic quality to his voice. And it just blew me away the first time I heard it. I remember thinking, I've got to find this record. And I looked for a really long time, and there was just a local spot here. It's not here anymore. There's this little place called the Wax Museum, and I went in there. I would go in there. It was kind of, I thought it was a honey hole that no one knew about, but everyone else thought that they were the only one that knew about it, so everybody kind of knew about it. But I remember going in there and finding this thing. I can't remember how much it was, but it was very cheap, and just taking it home with the biggest smile on my face and listening to it over and over again. But favorite one on here is Change Is Gonna Come. Sam Cooke, one of the greatest songs ever written. But man, I just love Otis Redding's version of that. Another one this was one for my teenage years that I never really thought about having on vinyl. And then when I got back into vinyl again, I've always been into it, but like in my 20s, I started really branching out into some stuff. And I've searched for, this is Deathcap for Cutie Transatlanticism. This is an album that I feel like anyone could like, but man, the song Transatlanticism on this record is one of my favorite songs. The way it builds, and every song on here. I mean, there's not a song that I would skip, but the lyrics, the way that the music just hits you, man. It's so killer. But this is one album that I listened to over and over again as a teenager. And as I got older, probably 5 or 6 years ago, well, maybe less, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, a few years ago, I tracked down an original press of this, and I was like just stoked. And this is another one that gets frequent spins. It was one when I realized it was on vinyl, I was like, I've got to find that. Another one, this is one I listened to a good bit in my youth, and then as I started collecting grunge and like Nirvana and Temple the Dog and Pearl Jam and stuff, I was like, I've got to find this. This is a Soundgarden, Super Unknown. This is, I don't know. Bad Motorfinger's really good. That might be my favorite, but this is probably tied. I don't know. Why do I have to tell you which one my favorite is? They're all great. But this Super Unknown, man, this album is so smoking, and it's one that's so good because I've known it for so long. It's a part of me, and every time I hear it, it's just I love it. It brings me back to a lot of sweet times. This is on the original press on clear vinyl. It's amazing, but that's one that I really, when I started getting into grunge, I felt like I needed it. Last one I'm going to show you is one of the most important albums that I ever discovered as a kid. And I've told this story on my YouTube channel before. If you've heard it before, I'm sorry. But this is one of my favorite record stories that I have, so I do repeat it every once in a while. This record I found in a dumpster. I was, I think, 13 or 14. There was a local record store. It was like a little hole in the wall that had tons of records, wall to wall. And everything in there was $1. But I was 13 or 14. I didn't have a lot of dollars. So occasionally, I would go dumpster dive there. I'd jump in the dumpster and go through, and he just throw down, records in the dumpster all the time. And I found this record. It was Muddy Waters. I remember seeing it say Muddy Waters, but this is the Muddy Waters Blues Band, Luther, Georgia, Snake Boy Johnson. It's on Douglas Records. This is not a super expensive record. And like me being a record store owner now, if I had this record, I don't know that I'd throw it in the garbage can, but I'd definitely put it in the dollar bin. It's really beat up. It doesn't have a jacket. This is not what the jacket's supposed to look like. But I found it, and I remember I was like, I've heard of Muddy Waters before, but Luther, Georgia, Snake Boy Johnson, that sounds awesome. So I took it home, and I put it on my turntable, and I heard Long Distance Call, that song on here. And man, it is this incredible blues number. This guy's talking about how, he caught his girl cheating on him. It's not what the song's about. And I mean, it's a blues classic, but that song, that's the first time I'd ever heard it. And I was like, man, like I was used to, the common classic rock that was on the radio. And this had more emotion in it than anything I'd ever heard in it. And it grabbed me so hard. I was like, I could not let it go. And so I listened to this record thousands of times in my youth, not ever knowing what the cover looked like, mind you. I never could find one with the cover in good shape. And so the skips were in my head. And even when I did listen to the album later with no skips, I could still hear the skips in my head. And I could even still hear like where certain crackle was and stuff. It's crazy. But when probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I found this. This is the cover. And this one's in like perfect shape. It's a promo copy. But that cover is just killer. And I don't think this is an expensive record. I haven't looked it up in a while. I think it's like a $20, $25, $30 record. It's not like but this was one that I did search for it for years, looking for it, and no one had ever heard of it. Like everyone I asked, like even when I go to the record store owners, I never heard of that. So this is one that when I did find it with the cover, I was so excited to see that the cover was so cool. But man, this one really ignited my love for the blues and changed the way I play guitar, changed the way I listen to music. But it grabbed me. But anyways, I just want to do this video to show you guys that you can listen to whatever you want, but find what you truly, truly love. And if you don't have a ton of money, stream it online before you buy it. There's no sin in that. Stream it online before you invest the $20 or $30 it is to buy the new record. And just buy records that you're going to listen to. That is my strongest advice I could ever give to you, is just be yourself and enjoy this hobby and find other people that are their selves as well. So thank y'all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram. We're always posting stuff. I own a record store in North Carolina where we're always doing a lot of fun things and putting out some cool records. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. We will see you next time.